act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cooper. At this point, I'd like to ask for approval of tonight's agenda. Have anybody wishing to make any amendments or addendums to the agenda? No. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That sounded like an aye. Anybody against? No. Okay, the agenda is approved. Next will be approval of our minutes from our last meeting, March 10th of 2020. I have a motion to approve.
So move.
So moved.
Second.
In a second. All in favor, aye.
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 Very good. Motions for the approval of minutes from March 10th, 2020 is approved. I will come by and I need to sign those for you, Nicole.
Okay, that's fine. If you know how to, I can send them to you via email if you would like.
That sounds great. Sure.
Okay? Okay.
First order of business will be finishing up old business, which will be discussing the rezoning of the property at the intersection of North State of Franklin and Sunset Drive, portion of tax map 045.
Did we lose Commissioner Weil?
I don't see her.
I don't see her. Is that her coming back?
No.
Not so far.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I'll text her.
We still have 7 of us. So, A-Song, do you want to go ahead and present? We can catch Stacy up if she's able to join us back.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Can you see my screen? I'm trying to share my screen.
No, we cannot.
Not quite yet.
Do we need to get out of this format for us to see a screen?
You go to the speaker view.
Yeah.
On
Wendy, it's Wendy there. Yes, Wendy.
the green button at the bottom, you hit share screen.
Oh, neat.
Is it working?
So, something's not right.
You got to go over your toolbar. It'll pop up if you go over your toolbar.
Okay, I have it now. Is it visible?
Mr. Handsome.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen now?
No,
No.
Choose the screen that you want and then hit share.
there's JC something. So you may have done that.
No, that's me.
Okay.
There you go.
Here we go.
There we go.
Oh,
Now we got it.
Thank you.
Stacy, you back?
I'm back.
right.
Ain't Xfinity wonderful?
Job. How did you know she was back?
Showing up.
Your user.
There she
So
is.
this was a staff-initiated rezoning which you considered at the meeting in March and decided to table this. You asked staff to send a registered mail to the applicant, to the property owner, the Stouts, and we did send that registered mail, and I included in your packet evidence of that. He did receive, sign it, and we have not received any call, any correspondence, or any letter from him. So we have the evidence that the letter was received. As I mentioned, this was a staff-initiated rezoning of a piece of property at the intersection of Sunset and State of Franklin. It's a single piece. The State of Franklin splits it into two. staff was requesting, the property is currently zone ROTP. The future land use map designates this area for medical use, and there have been significant changes in the local economy with respect to medical uses and the development of the MedTech corridor. We point out the changes that have taken place in this particular area over the years from 1998 to 2015. A lot of the properties have been rezoned from ROTP, MS1 to B4 to accommodate increasing demand for retail, restaurants, and other uses that are generally permitted in the arterial business district. The property is currently zoned B4. This is the site. It is currently zoned B4. To the south, it's currently zoned ROTP. To the south, it's a B4 zoning district, and to the north is a B4 zoning district. To the east is RO2, that is low density residential district, and this other area in white, that is outside of the city, that's in the county. Staff recommended that the area of this property, or the portion of this property to the west, be rezoned from ROTP to B4. That will basically consist in an extension of the B4 district further north southward, and the rezoning of the part of the portion of the property to the east, RO2, medium density residential planned office business district. The reason for this split was that we took into consideration the adjoining zoning districts and what impact this would have. The B4 zoning district is a more commercial intensive zoning district that would not be very compatible being located adjoining a single family residential district. So that can be kept on the west side of the property that adjoins State of Franklin and other commercial developments. While the RO01 and RO2 zoning districts provide a kind of a transition between commercial development and residential development. It would be more compatible on the east side of the property. There were a couple of concerns that the neighborhood raised at the neighborhood meeting that related to stormwater. These are issues that are generally handled when we have a development plan in place, and we review those plans ensuring that they meet city requirements for stormwater management. The engineering division is very strict on that. There were also concerns that were raised on traffic and to the State of Franklin and Sunset Drive, and whether we are going to open Oakdale Drive to public transportation. Right now, Oakdale Drive is a public street from Sunset Drive right up to this point. This is where we've got a public right-of-way. From this point, there is no public right-of-way, although it's being generally used by the public. We don't have a development plan at this time. There is no subdivision process going on. And if we have a developer tomorrow who wants to develop this piece of property, we will certainly be asking for that right-of-way to be dedicated on Oakdale Drive. There is no plan at this point to open Oakdale Drive to through traffic. However, in the past, following studies that the city did with TDOT, there were consideration on from MedTech Parkway, this intersection right down to Sunset Drive. TDOT said they would permit the city to have one driveway somewhere in this area. We also have this Hopewell Drive, which is planned to be extended further down to Sunset. So the development of this property, it's not planned or considered to have access from Oakdale Drive, which is really a small county road at this time. There were questions on whether this could be further down zoned. That's always a possibility, but staff does not think that further down zoning this property into a purely residential zoning district, such as R01, R02, R02A, R02B, R02C, which are basically single family residential districts, will be appropriate on this site. The reason being that this particular location adjoins an arterial road, which the entire neighborhood behind here does not. So this side has higher traffic, higher visibility. It's more compatible for office and low-scale commercial like development. And in the entire state of Franklin, from downtown right up to the interchange there with Bristol Highway, we don't have any residential zoning district. You don't have single-family residential subdivisions along the state of Franklin. Introducing one here will be out of character with this corridor. And there were concerns whether there is any specific development that we have in place for this property at this time, which we indicated, no, we do not have any development. This is a staff-initiated rezoning. At last meeting on May 10, you did listen to the public, a lot of public input. It is back on your desk for consideration. Staff maintains a recommendation that the west side of the property be rezoned from ROTP to B4, Plant Arterial Business District, and the east side of the property be rezoned from ROTP to RO2, Medium Density Residential Office Business, Professional Office Business District. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asong. That was really good. We've seen this before. Is there any public comment you'd like to read for us on this?
No, sir, we didn't receive any comments on this. At your meeting on March 10, you had significant public comments for over an hour.
I recall that. Thank you. Does anybody have questions for staff at this point?
I have just one. Are there any existing overlays that we have to either continue with that zoning or abandon? Any overlays?
The state of Franklin, right up from downtown up to Bristol Highway, has the design overlay, which extends 300 feet on either side of the road. That overlay will remain in place. So this change, this request for rezoning only affects the underlying district, the ROTP. The B4 zoning district is going, the DO overlay is going to remain in place.
Any further questions?
There was still no input from the Stouts. I missed the very beginning of this, so excuse me if that was already addressed. I know
Yes, ma'am.
you all sent registered mail to them and you have a receipt that they did receive it, but there was no further contact by them.
Yes, ma'am, we didn't receive any contact, whether by phone, by email, no contact.
Okay.
I'm glad we did that. I'm proud of us for reaching out. That was a good job. Thank you very much.
So,
Do we have any further questions or motions for approval or denial?
I move we approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. Was that Commissioner Wild?
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so I'll ask Ms. Lawrence to go ahead and call the roll.
Okay, Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Dagenhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Wild,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes.
and Chairman Zions.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll be moving on to new business now. And the first order of new business that I have down is to consider the preliminary plat for the villas at Greenwood Subdivision Phase 1. Asong?
Planning Commissioners, this is a request for phase 1 of the villas at Greenwood subdivision. Back in October last year, I think, before then, I think in August, you recommended the rezoning of this property to the RP zoning district, which the City Commission did approve. The developer at this time is requesting to develop just phase 1 of this project. So he's cutting this up into phases. This phase will include the construction of 12 single-family residential lots in this area of the property along Greenwood Drive and Willows Spring Drive. The concept plan included the construction of a street. It was going to be a local street at this intersection going into the property. That street will not be constructed in this phase one. All the lots will be accessed from Willow Springs Drive, which is already a public street. As such, they already have public street frontage. This is the layout of the preliminary plat. It has got 12 lots on it, and all the lots adjoin Willow Spring Drive. There are two main areas for stormwater management labeled on the plat as SWM Area 1 and SWM Area 2. These are areas for stormwater management. They have been significantly increased in size relative to what you had at the concept plan. That increase is certainly, as we did predict. Once the design engineer gets into the construction plans phase, then he starts taking into consideration the details of the site that we did not have at the time of concept plan approval and the rezoning of the property. The plat as submitted, the preliminary plat, meets all requirements of the subdivision regulations. They meet all requirements of the zoning ordinance. There was a concern that I received from one of the residents in the neighborhood, and that had to do with access from lot 12. The concern was basically that future users of this site, when exiting this property, will have to go through this median on Willow Springs Drive. Now, when this preliminary plat was initially submitted to staff, this area that is now labeled open space had a lot on it. And we took that into consideration and asked the developer to remove that lot. And that's what he did. So there will be no lot in this area. It will just be left as open space. Lot 12, I've used our systems to do the measurement of lot 12, has enough space, measured, this is 12 feet from the edge of that median to the end of the lot. That can accommodate a driveway. So if anybody is going into the subdivision, you'll be able to go in, and if you're coming out of the subdivision, you'll be able to come out through that 15 feet and exit onto Greenwood Drive without facing any obstruction from the median. This is the concept plan that was approved at City Commission. The developer has reduced the number of lots in this particular phase. If you look, the lots that were adjoining Willow Springs Drive as proposed on the concept plan, there were 15 lots. That has been reduced to 12, which is really in line with what we predicted, that as it gets into the construction phase of this project, the number of lots are most likely going to reduce just because of the necessity and the amount of land he will need to handle stormwater issues. Staff recommends approval.
Reduced further, Asai?
Sorry, sir.
You think they will be reduced further?
It is possible that as he gets into phase 2, they may be reduced further as he gets into the design in phase 2. It's possible. But he cannot increase.
Is that median already existing? I'm sorry.
I didn't hear you.
Is the median already exist?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This median exists already.
Okay.
Hey, Sean.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't there a big discussion about the ability of Antioch Road or Antioch Drive, whichever way it's called now, being overcrowded with traffic, and there was some concern about what all these additional lots would do? Did we get that settled?
Yes, sir. That was resolved during the rezoning of the property. We actually went out there and did traffic counts. did speed measurements, and we determined that the number of lots as proposed will not exceed the capacity, the traffic will not exceed the design capacity of the road.
Thanks.
You're welcome, sir.
Nice work.
Fine.
Go ahead.
My question is, I know that they've reduced the density significantly to 3.46 when they're allowed 8.5. What is the density, if you could, I don't know how many because I can't see on the diagram, but what is the number of lots that is directly across the street on Willow Springs? Is it a comparable density, or is it more dense or less dense in this proposal?
Do you mean for the existing subdivision?
Yes.
It's comparable, but even keeping that aside, the two properties have the same zoning district. So it's really left to each developer to see how they can kind of maximize the use of the site based on existing features, based on capacity, infrastructure, and other elements. So it's comparable.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, A-Song. Do we have any further questions for staff before we have someone read the public comment?
Yeah, just one question, Hassan. What are the developers' options for the open space in the future?
He cannot do anything with the open space. It has to remain green. The highest he can do there maybe is to pull a trail. He can use it for something recreational, but he cannot build structures on it that will affect, for example, stormwater flow, increase impervious area.
Okay, so he couldn't access that lot, that open space from Greenwood Drive to pick up an additional lot?
No, he couldn't do that.
Okay.
This particular zoning district requires a minimum 15% of the subdivision has to be left as open space.
Okay.
And that's what he has.
So in fact, he's not losing a lot. He's just dedicating this open space in the area where the median prohibits an additional lot to be put.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any further questions for staff? Okay, I don't hear any. So let's go ahead and move to the public comment that we would normally invite our public to come and comment in person. Our public has submitted some comments in written form for us, and the staff has received them. We want to make sure they are considered at this point. So is there somebody that can read the public comment, please?
Sure, I'll go for it for you.
Thank you.
All right, the first one was received from Jamie Herman today, and it was sent from his iPhone. I am a resident at the Willow Springs Reserve existing development. I have lived at Willow Springs Reserve since it was built. The stakes for the first home in the new proposed development, Lot 12, are set directly across from the entrance median to the existing subdivision. Any car which turns from South Greenwood Drive into the Willow Springs development will enter any driveway at Lot 12 at approximately 54 feet. Mr. Bernard has advised that the applicable code actually permits as short a turn from a major road into a subdivision as 40 feet. This seems both unbelievable and unsafe. I urge the commissioners to visit the site in person to view the Willow Springs Reserve entrance before approving the proposed plat. So that was the one that Hassan referenced in his presentation. The second comment was received Saturday, April 25th from Larry Harrison. Larry Harrison asked, are they removing the trees that separate the development between them and the cottages at Willow Springs? If so, they need to check the survey. When I purchased my house at 309 Anthurium Avenue, the survey stick was even where the trees are not inside, where they have it staked. If they are not removing the trees, it isn't as much of a concern. Thank you for your time, and I would appreciate a response when you have the answer. My email is, or my phone number is.
Do we want to stop there and ask staff any questions about the trees and the survey? Ason, give any input on that?
Yes, sir. As far as the trees are concerned, I sent an inquiry to the developer, which is the very next
The next
public
email.
input that you have. And the developer responded that the trees will be left in place. They will not be removed.
Okay.
Yeah. The next email was received Friday, April 24th. And this one was from the developer. It says, "Hi, Tim. Please find attached the staff report for the Villas at Greenwood preliminary plat that the Regional Planning Commission will consider on Monday. I have received many inquiries from the neighborhood asking if the buffer trees currently in the south of the property will be maintained or cut down. Can you provide an answer for the records that I should provide to the Planning Commission? These will be left in place." That was his answer. Questions have also been asked on whether you can destroy the landscape easement along Willow Springs Road in front of lots 10, 11, and 12 to construct driveways for those lots. Now, that is a private easement, but the Planning Commission may want to clarify as it approves the potential creation of these lots as buildable. Can you provide clarity on this for the records that I should give to the Planning Commission? And his answer is the landscape easement is only in front of lots 11 and 12. We certainly will not destroy the landscaping easement, but two small driveways will cut it for access to lots 11 and 12. As you can see in the attached photos I took today, the Homeowners Association only uses the triangle part of the landscape easement. They don't even mow the part going down Willow Springs. This easement has been here 10 years, and if the Homeowners Association was going to use it, I think they would have already done so. I also took a couple of videos, and so the remainder are pictures and videos, and I'm hoping Asan can maybe share and explain.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further public comment? Is anybody is aware of at this time? Okay, I don't hear of any. Any further questions for staff at this point? Ason, do you need to enlighten us anymore on the, I think you've already covered the turn in 40 feet, 50 feet, 53 feet and what's going on there. But is there anything you'd like to tell us more about that, or Alan?
I think you had the element of the driveway, and then the second part of the comment had to do with how far a driveway has to be from the intersection of Greenwood Drive into Willow Springs Drive. Basically, how far do you have to clear the functional area of that intersection? I'm going to ask Alan, the city engineer, to address that, please.
Not sure if I have a microphone on here. Never used this computer before. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Got you loud and clear. Alan.
Okay. Okay. I just don't see you guys anymore. A driveway near an intersection in a residential subdivision can be 25 feet from the cross street, which would be Greenwood Drive, or 25 feet from the end of the radius that you turn the corner on, whichever is greater. So if you had a 20-foot radius, add 25 foot, you'd have 45 feet from the edge of the cross street. That's to keep a car from backing out right in the intersection and to give a car turning in enough time to turn the corner and slow down and avoid somebody that's just backed out into the street. Generally, residential driveways operate with you backing into the street. We don't allow that in commercial, but that's allowed in residential. They would back out to the, if they're going to go back to Greenwood Drive, they're going to back out and with their rear going back into the subdivision, then they'll pull forward around the median. We were concerned and told in our comments, the developer, that he had choices. One was to eliminate the lot, which he did, and make sure the lot that stays has a way to get around the median, or he can do work to the median to make it more possible to get a driveway out. The median is in the public street. It may have some easement rights to the existing neighborhood. And I would imagine that that choice was not taken because of possible conflicts with others not wanting the median to be reconstructed or shortened. So the current layout is satisfactory. It meets regulations.
Thank you very much, Alan. I appreciate your time. Does anybody else have any further questions for staff?
Alan, I assume there's no, from a code standpoint, there's no issues with the large 12 driveways dumping into Willow Drive?
Now that is, other than this particular zone allowing these more narrow lots, this is typical driveway arrangement for a local street. A local street is the lowest level of street with the highest level of access. As you go out of away from a local street, you start to limit access to the point where you have on an arterial, you don't want as many access points with people having driveways onto the street, but it's the opposite in residential. It's allowed. And so this is typical residential subdivision layout.
Thank you.
Very nice. Good question. Okay. Do we have any further questions for staff at this point? All right, I'll open up for motions for approval or denial of this preliminary plat.
Motion to approve?
Thank you. A motion to
Second.
approve. Have a second.
Second.
All right, thank you, Jamie, for the second. At this point, we'll ask if there's any further discussion. Okay, seeing none, Nicole, if you'll go ahead and call the roll for us, please.
Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Dagenhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Wild,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes.
and Chairman Zions.
Yes,
Motion approved.
thank you. Approved. I have to say, I think my favorite is you outside, Jamie. That looks like the most fun meeting ever.
I've been in this spot for a while, actually.
This looks great. All right, next item on the agenda will be to consider the annexation of the property at 559 Boring Chapel Road. Song.
And Commissioners, this is a request to annex a piece of property on Boring Chapel Road, just to give you an orientation of where we are in the city. This road right here, this is Kingsport Highway. This is Boones Creek Road. This is South Pickens Bridge Road. So if you get on that intersection of Boones Creek Road and Kingsport Highway and you head north,
Are you sharing your screen with us right now?
yes, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see me? Can you see it?
Is anybody else seeing it?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll probably just change something then and figure out what happened. There it is. I'm sorry. Thank you. I got it.
Okay. So this particular area, this is the cottages at Cedar Rock that we have had a couple of developments on that side, rezoning, subdivision, construction. So if you just continue north, Boring Chapel Road begins from about this point and extends further into this peninsula, basically to the edge of the city. This blue line is the urban growth boundary. So this property, the property is right here where you've got this black dot. The property is within the urban growth boundary. The property, the annexation is requested by the property owner. The property is in the corridor of the urban services area or boundary. And Boring Chapel Road in this area is inside the city. So this property will adjoin or adjoins the city limits. As such, the request for annexation meets all legal requirements. The applicant or the property owner is requesting this annexation because he wants his kids to be in city schools. As he stated, he has 2 kids. He wants them to be in city schools. Staff has done an evaluation on this, a fiscal impact analysis evaluation on this. It will generate, estimated to generate $1,750 in property taxes. The property currently has sewer, this blue line on Boring Chapel Road. Those are water lines. So it's currently on city water, but it does not have sewer. To extend sewer onto this property, there are 2 alternatives. This brown line down here, this is a sewer line, and this is a sewer line. Although the sewer line is most proximate to this side, there is a significant retaining wall out here. And to get on this property, the city will need to acquire easements. Other variables will just come into play. The Water and Sewer Department therefore prefers not to go that route. It may end up being more expensive with acquisition of easements to extend that line. Consequently, the Water and Sewer Department prefers to extend this line on Boring Chapel Road, Boring Chapel Road is already a public street, onto this side. That is estimated to cost $57,000. It will be the...
Hassan, forgive me very quickly. Is the line that goes through the multifamily, it's also a pressurized line, is it not?
It is.
Okay.
It is. That's a main. It will be the responsibility in the extension of sewer. It will be the responsibility of the property owner to acquire the sewer taps. To extend the line, the city will only bring the line right up to the property line right here. So it will be the responsibility of the property owner to extend that line from the road down to his house. So all of that is going to be the responsibility of the property owner. Thirdly, the city, what we have provided in the plan of services is that whenever the property owner makes a request and is ready to spend that money for the city to extend this sewer line, we will have 18 to 24 months to get that done. So all other services will be provided in accordance with city policy as applicable.
Hassan, can I ask a question? So that $57,000, that would be the responsibility of the applicant, or that's the responsibility of the city?
It will be the responsibility of the city.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
So that is the estimated cost for extending this line from this location right up to this property line.
And once it's at the property line, then it's the responsibility of the applicant.
The applicant, yes, to pull it from the property line into his house.
Thank you.
So if I understood you, Hassan, we're going to collect $1,751 in taxes, and we're going to spend $7,000 to extend the line. Did I get that right?
57,000.
57,000.
It'd take 32 years to for the city to become whole based on the current tax rate.
Generally, in the extent, if planning commissioners will allow me finish, and then I can take your questions at the end, please. Generally, to extend utilities when you're dealing with the annexation of a single family house, 1, 2, 5, or even 10 single family houses, and you have to extend utilities, there will hardly ever be a balance between the expenditure and how much money you're going to get from property taxes. There will hardly ever be. It really needs to be one big new subdivision and the distance between the existing lines to that subdivision really has to be short for you to break even within a very short time. And that line can eventually be extended to serve other properties further down. Let's take note that this property is within the urban services area, which means that the city already plans or has some kind of a commitment to the extension of public, urban services, urban utility services within this particular area to increase development density.
Hassan, would it be appropriate to consider the services agreement I know we've done this in other places where we've amended the city services agreement to say we are not bound to provide city sewer at this time, but it may be available in the future. And so if it becomes economically more feasible to run a sewer line to this area, as you see these different areas of the city begin to meet, the city limits come together, and it makes more economic sense, well, then you go ahead and, he can go ahead and have a sewer tap up to the street and we'll go ahead and provide the service. But at this point, we don't have to go in the whole 30 years for a single residence. That might be, does anybody or does staff have any thought on amending the services agreement to
I do.
that?
Yes, we actually took that into consideration. That was applicable before 2014. When the state changed the annexation laws, it currently requires that the plan of services has to have the kind of services, that is water, sewer, recreation. You have to cover all those kind of services, and you have to have a time frame. You cannot just leave it open. There has to be a time frame, or you have to provide particular triggers for that time frame. So in this case, for example, we're not binding ourselves to 1 year, 2 years to extend sewer onto this site. Already there is underground septic on this property. Mm-hmm. And the property owner is very okay. That septic system is not failing. He will continue using his septic, underground septic that is there on the site. Only until such a time when he comes up, the city after this annexation will not just go ahead and extend that line. No, until when he is ready to spend that additional money, which we've calculated is going to be between $13,000 to $15,000 that he has to spend. If he is ready to spend that money, and then he will indicate to the city that, okay, I've got the money, I'm ready to move forward. And from that day, we will have 2 years to extend that line. So
Okay.
there is leeway we need for the city.
Great. Any other questions, staff? Please go ahead.
In terms of the zoning of the property, it lies in an area that is generally single-family residential. This is the future land use map of the city. And the area you see here in green, light green, that is suburban residential agricultural area. So it generally fits into that low density residential neighborhood, which is characterized or which the R2 zoning district squarely fits into. So staff is recommending that this property be zoned R2, which will be in line with the subdivision both in the north, east, and in the southwest of the property. Staff believes that this rezoning will basically be kind of filling in, the existing city limits. We currently have these 2 islands right down to Pickens Bridge Road. All of this is within the urban growth area. We've got these 2 islands. We've got an area in between. Public services such as police, fire, schools, they already fly through this road to get to this Lake Harbor estates to pick up kids. So there would not be any extension of those public services. They're already going through this road. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. And you would need a motion that said we recommend the annexation with the proposed zoning of R2 and the plan of services as proposed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Either all of those have to be stated in one motion or voted separately.
Together would be fine. Do we have any further questions for staff?
I have a question.
Go.
Asong, do you have any indication from other residents in that vicinity interested in joining the city?
I've not received any requests at this time, sir.
Good question.
My question is more, maybe Preston can help answer it, because I think we're going to come up with the same discussion with our next item to consider. How do we balance, the fiscal prudence for the city? Like I said, in this case, we're looking at a 32-year return on investment before the city even breaks even. And I fully understand that it is going to be difficult with a single property owner for the city to get to a break-even point. But how do we weigh, how much is it really fiscally prudent for us to say the city should spend, You know, maybe it's in the next year that the property owner comes up with the money and wants to extend the sewer. Maybe it's not for 15 years, but how, can you give us any guidance into how we should weigh that?
I think what makes a difference is that, and Hassan alluded to this in his presentation, that Lake Harbor Estates already exists and is in the city limits. If this property was on the outer edge of the city limits, even within the urban growth boundary and within the urban services area, but was on the outer limits of the city limits, I think then you really have a question of, there's a reasonableness test for the viability and the fiscal responsibility of extending public services, not only subsurface utilities, but even buses and fire engines and police cars out that way. But again, I think Hassan said it best, and he made 2 points. One, this piece of property is inward from existing city limits. So it is moving back in the direction of town. And then second, that there are already subsurface and above ground services being provided to and past this property. The extension of the sewer, yes, it would be a significant cost. But again, as we've discussed previously, government is often a loss leader, and government's responsibility is to invest in those essential services that are often not provided by the private sector. And so sewer being one of those is something that can be provided and then beyond this property, and most likely will be provided further down Boring Chapel Road. So again, I think that Hassan's made a strong case for the annexation. If, again, I'll just summarize where I started, if Lake Harbor Estates was not there or was not in the city, I think this conversation would be very different.
Let me add something. This is Alan. As far as the revenue, water and sewer is an enterprise fund and separate from the tax fund, which is the general fund. The general fund rarely pays for things in water sewer. Water sewer is solely supported by the user fees that you pay when you pay your water and sewer bill, plus tap fees. Tap fees are, as I understand them, value that actually pays for installing that tap. That doesn't pay for extending the sewer line, just the tap. But any funds that would go towards extending the sewer line would be out of the enterprise fund that's supported by user fees, not your tax dollars.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, Alan. Thank you.
Don't we have other impacts other than just water and sewer? Normally we'll do a physical impact analysis that includes police, fire, public works, you know, a pretty long laundry list. So we're really not talking about just $57,000.
My understanding, what you're saying, A-Song, is that this area is they're already reaching just past it, and there wasn't going to be any appreciable change in that because it's already right there. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. All those services, police, fire, they're already going through this road, passing in front of this property to get to Lake Harbor Estate. So nothing is going to change.
Well, I understand that, but incrementally, you know, at some point, if we do enough of these, we got to have another policeman, we got to have another fire truck, we've got to have another classroom. I mean, isn't that the way the analysis is basically structured?
Is Bob Cooper on my soapbox?
I've been reading your mail, Jamie.
You're going to talk about impact fees next?
Nope, I'm done. I got a believer.
Well, no, I'm not ready to talk about impact fees, but
that's what that
at least
is.
Historically, we have at least the staff has presented us an analysis that showed, at least at some level, the incremental cost of each one of these annexations, correct?
Yes, and I'm going to answer for A-Song, but then I'm going to let him answer for himself. I'm guessing because it was a single family thing, because it was so small that's why you didn't go into it any further than that. But normally, yes, we do see a complete financial impact analysis with a number and sort of a pro forma or spreadsheet. Is that what you were going to say, Asong? I'm guessing.
Yes, sir. For example, when we did the annexation for, I think the 40 lots out there on West Walnut, and there was another piece of property on South Pickens Bridge that had like 80 something. Julie Lane had like 81. Those big projects that have significant impact, we do the full analysis. When it's just one single piece, we kind of contract it.
So 6 months from now, when this guy decides to develop that property, then we do an analysis then?
It's already developed. There is already a house on the property.
Well, yeah, but it's just one house.
And that's all he can do.
That's all he can do. It's gonna be an R2, right? RP2?
R2, he can only have one house on that property. He cannot turn into multifamily.
He's done.
Okay.
Hey, son, is there anything magical about the 18 to 24 months? Can that be extended?
Yeah, that's a great question.
There's nothing magical about it. Basically, that's what the Water and Sewer Department thought they could do, but it's pretty open for the Planning Commission and the City Commission to make a decision on. There's nothing magical about it.
I've seen 5 years on that number before too.
I mean, can we do 10 years? Can we do 15 years? Can we say, I don't know. I mean, if we can't leave an open trigger, can we say that we would install sewage and pay this cost when the majority of properties between Lake Harbor and Luther Payne, when the majority of those properties want to enter into the annexation, that would be the trigger we would use. Could we use something that specific?
I think, let me ask a question real quick before we answer that. And Alan, maybe you can answer that for us. Since this is an enterprise deal, you kind of have an idea of what the enterprise budget is. So is this one of those things that's going to be a burden for the enterprise budget that would want us to trigger this to a longer time frame? Or is this really pretty much a digestible thing in the normal function of water and sewer?
Alan isn't on his screen. He may not be with us right now.
Ah, poop. How about Preston? Can you answer that, or Asong?
I think the first thing that I need to mention about the 18 months to 24 months, that is not the duration from the time of annexation.
Yeah, it's the time from when he wants to.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So, and we can extend that. I think generally what the Water and Sewer Department does is they look at their enterprise fund, they look at how much capital investment possibilities they have in that fund, and they make those determinations.
I guess my reservations are, I think we all feel the sense that we're about to have, a real hit in our tax collection, especially on our tax revenue, sales taxes, and invest this amount of money in the next 24 months because the guy wants to send his kid to school. It just seems like if we could just separate that and let his child and children go to school with Johnson City, but have some kind of separate area to put a longer trigger on the sewage, I think it'd be beneficial for both of us. So we can still honor his annexation request, but at the same time, we would not be investing the kind of money that we might be short-handed on in the next 2 years.
Well, he can still go to a city school. They just have to pay
Pay tuition.
a tuition.
Oh,
so I don't think this is a good deal for me.
I don't think it's a good deal for us to vote for this, to spend the money like this.
I'm not uncomfortable with allowing him to be annexed into the city and to receive the city services, like the fire and police protection and things like that, given that we are already providing them to Lake Harbor Estates, which is further downstream than he is. But I do not believe that we should make a commitment to extending sewerage when he wants it. I think it should be something closer to what Commissioner Whitfield proposed, that when the majority of the lots between those two subdivisions come up with requests for annexation into the city, or such time that the city determines they need to create that sewer line, then the sewer would be extended to that property, but not something that's triggered by this particular applicant, something that's triggered more by something that would be beneficial to the city as a whole.
Hey, Song, you said there were some changes to the annexation laws that took away some of the triggers, because we've had a number of properties that were set up that way, that basically the sewer would be placed at the city's convenience in the future. What are the limitations on this, the triggers that we can place on it?
We have to specify the time. We can't just leave it in the open with the city having full discretion. No, we have to specify the time when that can be done. No, there's no limit to that time. The plan of services is basically a kind of an agreement between the city and the property owner who is requesting the annexation. So if we were to extend that 18 months to 24 months, for example, to a 5 years period, and the property owner is okay with that, it must follow. You know, we could go with that. It's basically like a kind of an agreement between two parties. And state law also requires that 1 year after we annex the property, we have to provide an update. And then after every 6 months, we have to do an update on the plan of services. So it's possible to change the plan of services along the line.
It's interesting though on this, because pragmatically, we already have a house that's developed that has a functioning sewer that would be quite costly for them to bring out to a tap anyway. So the likelihood that this particular property is going to ask for a sewer tap anytime soon is probably very low. Now, I can't predict the future, but that's just sort of a pragmatic approach. It's not likely we're going to have to incur this expense. I would be comfortable with just putting a 5-year number on it and saying that gives us plenty of room in case there is any concern of the enterprise budget. But it still kind of moves this towards this time frame where we might see this fill in this in the city limits there.
Hassan,
Yes, sir.
ask a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The statutory triggers that you speak of, are they limited to just time, or are they also, would it by chance allow acreage or geographic land area to be a trigger versus time? And here's why. Time only.
Time, yes, sir.
Okay. What I was hoping you would say is that land area could be considered as a trigger, because there's the potential that, once you reach a certain number of acres between Lake Harbor Estates and Luther Payne subdivision, that once you reach a trigger of acreage, that at that time, sewer could be extended. Part of the concern I have with time is, and we have yet to receive any interest in this. There may be none. It could come in the door tomorrow. But if you look across the street, across Boring Chapel Road, property that is currently undeveloped, if a developer came in 6 months from now, the subdivision, and wanted to provide a development there and annex into the city, and then we were somehow locked into a time frame that would not allow extension of sewer before 5 years. I mean, I'm sure there would be some way to negotiate around that. I just don't want to get us into a situation where we are where we've got our one of our hands tied behind our back from a time perspective.
It wouldn't limit us to have to definitely wait 5 years. It would just give us the ability to choose wait 5 years, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And if the owner of this property wanted annexation, we would do his own plan of services.
And then it might just be great, because it would make more sense if somebody put a nice development there.
Yeah.
Hey, son, where is the sewer in Lake Harbor Estates going now? How is it not going down Boring Chapel Road?
It's going into the lake.
Get their own treatment, I assume.
Yeah. I didn't see it come out either, Clay.
It comes out not going up this direction. There is some other subdivision further up this way, and then
So
I think there is.
it's heading north somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I assume there's a treatment plant somewhere.
It gets pumped along the line and finds its way to the plant.
That's that seepage in Boone Creek, as you call it.
Yeah, it's not Boone Lake, it's Boone Creek. I
Boone
think they're
River.
going to change the name of the subdivision to Creek Harbor Estates.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and with a provocative movement, and I'm going to make a movement that we deny this proposal as it currently stands.
Okay, let's see if we have any further discussion or any seconds at this point. And actually, we've talked a lot and asked staff questions, but we did not ask if there's any public comment.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So let me back up on that if you don't mind a moment.
I'm gonna table my movement then.
Okay, thank you. Was there any public comment for this A-Song?
No, sir.
Okay, no public comment. So we will go ahead and open up for a discussion. Thank you, Dr. Winfield. And your motion would be to deny the request?
That's correct.
And I'm willing to second that motion.
We do have a motion and a second for denial of the annexation at this point. Do I have any further discussion or questions regarding this?
Well, I personally like the concept of encouraging annexation with the caveat of trying to extend the ultimate sewer service as far out as we can reasonably do, 5 years, for example.
That would be the mindset that I would be of, but I appreciate your comment. Anybody else wish to comment before we vote on this motion?
I have just one quick question. So based on what you said earlier, Hassan, we still have properties within the city that are still on city water, but using a septic.
Yes, sir.
What's that?
Yes, we have some properties in the city that they're on city water, but on septic. Yes, on the ground.
So how can we not put this particular dwelling in that same category?
Some of them were annexed, as I did mention, they were annexed at a time when we did not have to provide a time frame for providing those particular services. And as such, you often had a statement like,
So again, it goes back to time?
Yes.
It goes back to time?
Yes. The common statement then was sewer will be extended as development occurs. That was the final phrase that was used at the time. We can't use that phrase anymore.
How about this phrase? The city is not obligated to provide sewer.
No, we have to, any service that is provided by the city in kind, in type, must be included in the plan of services. We have to. Any citizen or any property owner that is annexed into the city has to have equal opportunity benefiting from city services like any other person that is paying property taxes in the city. We just have to provide a time. And there is no requirement in state law that it has to be 1 year, 2 years. You can totally have it 10 years. You can have it 5 years. That's
Can we not just say when the majority of properties between these two areas are developed, then we'll provide them within 2 years or 5 years or 10 years? Can we not do that? That's still a time limit.
But that makes the provision of public services to this property dependent on other property owners who may never even request. We don't know if they're going to request annexation. In the past, when the city had the authority or the power to just go out and annex, that was very easy. You know, the laws have been changed. We can only annex upon request by the property owner. So,
what about a time frame? But say you'll provide sewer services when it's economically feasible.
That's an action trigger. That's not a time.
That's not time.
It has to be time based.
What's the motivation for the applicant for annexation?
Alan, you're back with us.
His motivation is the schools. He wants to put his kids in school. He doesn't care about the sewer, and that's what
he wants to say. What, $2,400 a year?
Yeah, he wants to spend $60,000 for it.
Pragmatically, he's probably not going to choose it. Alan Cantrell, can you explain to us the enterprise fund and what this burden would look like to the enterprise fund?
Well, all of the fees, and I'm speaking just from being around and picking this up from my colleagues, not from being in the water sewer department where I would know more about it since I'm in the public works department. But the sewer and water fees that you pay are set up they're called user fees. You might think of them as taxes, but you get something, you get the water, you get the use of the sewage treatment. Those pay for the operation, all the bills to have sewer treatment plants to treat the sewage and to upkeep the lines. That is set aside separate from property taxes and sales taxes. That was done mainly to be sure that things that compete for the tax money wouldn't make it hard to get money spent on good sewer lines and treatment plants. In the day when tax dollars, the same dollars paying for schools, roads, and fire stations were competing, water and sewer facilities tended to suffer and go down, and you released bad water. So state law was changed to require communities to set up a program that would charge a fee that would pay for the cleaning the sewer, taking care of maintenance, and providing for future growth. And so when the water sewer department does a small extension, it'll come out of their regular operating budget. When we do a large project where we may go into a complete area, a region, they're going to borrow that money and set up budgeted money out of the enterprise fund to pay the monthly or annual fees for that borrowed money. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but it's pretty much set aside and separate from tax, and it'd be very rare that you would supplement the water sewer fund with tax dollars.
I can tell you that in the budget talks that we have with the city, this particular area's conversation's a lot different than the rest of the city. We're trying to balance how much money we're going to get from sales tax and motel tax and all those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. The conversation around the water sewer is more of a balanced budget approach that they bring forth, and as you can tell, pretty much everybody that's using the services pays for the services, and that really doesn't go away very easily, as opposed to the sales tax, which is, we're really, and Commissioner Whitfield was right, we're going to have a really tough, interesting year, budget year coming up relative to what's happened in sales tax.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like they still have to borrow this money. Alan, is that correct? So $57,000.
Well, something this scale, $50,000 or $60,000, would be something that's totally possible to be done within their regular operating budget, which is approved year by year. When we're talking about borrowing money, you're talking about millions of dollars. Like when we redo a sewer plant for $20 million, that's going to be borrowed. If you're going to extend sewer lines to a large region, renewing old dilapidated lines, for example, that may be borrowed money. But something this small would be out of the operating.
Hassan, since this homeowner's interest is merely in allowing his children to attend Johnson City Public Schools, is he aware of the option of paying tuition for that to occur? And
yes.
He is aware, and he doesn't want to merely do that. But
yes,
if that is his main interest, then could we not approve his annexation request and set something like a 20-year limit? I mean, something that, is a very long, that he may not be opposed to, because he would be getting what he's after. He's after having his children attend public schools. He's going to receive the other city services. It just doesn't make the city, doesn't give the city a commitment in the near future until it's beneficial for the city.
Here's probably his logic. Tuition costs money. So tuition costs money, and if he's in the city, then he doesn't have to pay the tuition. And he knows he's got to spend $15,000 to move a sewer to his house, and he's never going to do that.
Yeah.
But we're on the hook to move 50, however many quarter of a mile or whatever that is. But that to me makes no sense.
Chairman.
We have a motion on the floor for denial. we have had some good discussion, in which case if the denial motion fails, we could talk about hours or how to adjust this differently. But I'm going to ask if everybody's okay to move along with calling the roll. Does anybody have any further discussion?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Nicole, we have a motion for a denial by Dr. Whitfield and a second from Commissioner Wild, Dr. Wild. So why don't we go ahead and call the roll, Nicole?
Okay. Vice Chairman Cooper,
No.
is that a no to deny or a?
Well, yes.
No.
No to
Well,
deny. Go ahead.
yeah.
Okay, if you vote yes, that means you agree with denial.
This means
No.
no.
I'm
Nicole.
voting no, because I don't agree with
Okay.
denial.
Nicole,
Okay.
Nicole,
Mhm.
Nicole,
Yes, yes.
please, let's not use the words deny. Let's stick with the motion. If you agree with the motion as stated, vote yes. If you are not in support of the motion as stated, vote no.
That's right.
Okay. So Vice Chairman Cooper, you are voting no.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Dagenhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Wild,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun,
No.
and Chairman Zions.
No.
Okay, that is 3 no, and the rest are agreeing with the motion.
So that was 6 yes and 3 no. So the
Correct.
the motion
So the-
for denial of the request for annexation passes.
Correct.
All right. That was good discussion. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I'm curious, what at this point, can he appeal to the city commission with this annexation request or no?
Yes, he can. What really leaves the planning commission is a recommendation to the city commission. So if he wants to proceed with it, he will make the request and we will proceed to put this on the city commission agenda with a no recommendation from the planning commission.
Very good.
But what that means is, because the plan of services, it's something that per the law is produced by the planning commission. So the city commission will have to look into the plan of services and determine, okay, whether this plan of services is something they want to go with or they want to make amendments to it and ask you to take another look at it. So it's possible that the 5 years we're talking about, city commission may look at that option and then say amend the plan of services to reflect this and have the planning commission take another look at it.
And then we'd have to view the plan of services again.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And probably the zoning, I guess, correct?
Yes, the zoning is all part of the plan of services.
No, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. That was good. Let's move on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is to consider the annexation at the intersection of Christian Church Road and Boone Station Road.
Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, this is an owner-initiated annexation. I'm going to call it a Sharp Farm annexation because this piece of property does not have an address at this time. You will recall, kind of giving you a general idea of the area in which we are, and this is the interstate I-26 where we have the current improvements to create the Diamond Verge that it's ongoing. This is Bonus Creek Road. This is Christian Church Road going this way. This is the property owned by Ballard Health, which you examined at your meeting on May 10 for rezoning from RTP to B4. You did recommend that. So this is the general area we're looking at. Currently, this is just one big piece of property. It's about 36 acres. And the property owner is requesting that the city annex 19.56 acres, so a portion of that 36 acres piece of property. This lot This is what you considered in the past that was named the profit annexation. So this is not the same property. This is just in the same vicinity. It's not the same property. It is requested by the property owner. The property is within the urban growth boundary and it adjoins city limits. Christian Church Road is inside the city. As such, it meets the requirements, the legal requirements for annexation. Staff has done analysis on the plan of services. At this moment, there is no proposed development for this piece of property. So the evaluation that we have there, for example, in terms of property taxes, assumes the property just remaining vacant. If you have a development on that piece of property, the taxes are certainly going to change. And if you have a commercial development in particular, the taxes is going to be higher than what we currently have shown. Vacant property is taxed at 25% of the assets value and commercial property is taxed at 40%. So it's going to be significantly different. Right now, there is no water on the site. There is no sewer, same as the discussion that we had. The Water and Sewer Department has estimated that it will cost $33,000 to extend sewer, to extend water, that's this blue line, from here to the site on Christian Church Road. It will not go through private property. And it will cost $98,000 to extend sewer, which is this brown line onto this site. All other services will be provided in accordance with city policy. In terms of the assignment of zoning to this particular piece of property, this is the current city zoning in this area. It adjoins an ROTP zone, which you have recommended to the City Commission that it be zoned B4. In other words, if that rezoning is approved by the City Commission, then all of this area will all become B4. So that is scheduled to be considered for first reading at City Commission on May 7th. So it won't be until first Thursday in June for that to be finalized at City Commission. The applicant has requested the B4 zoning district, which is a planned arterial business district. It's a general retail intensive commercial corridors that we have in the city, like what you have on Northern Street, on State of Franklin, Bristol Highway. Those are all B4 corridors. Let me step back and say something real quick. The property right now in the county is zoned plant manufacturing business district, which permits uses that are more intensive than even the city's B4 zoning district. It permits even industrial developments on that side that are more intensive than the B4 zoning district in the city, if these were annexed in the city and so zoned. There are changes that are taking place in this corridor. And one of those changes has to do with the transportation network. Right now, Christian Church Road is a local street, basically a small county road. It wasn't constructed to handle the traffic that is even there at this time. There are changes taking place in this corridor from a traffic perspective that are going to be permanent. One of those is the fact that there will be increased traffic on Christian Church Road because there will not be a left turn lane anymore on Lake Park Drive, right here where you have this circle. This road going in is Lake Park Drive. With this improvement that we have going on, there will be no left turn lane on Lake Park Drive. So all traffic, all eastbound traffic going towards the DMV area, going to this property that is zoned manufacturing and all these offices, any future development out here on this property owned by Ballard, all of it will have to go in through Christian Church Road. So with or without the annexation of this piece of property, Christian Church Road is primed for improvement, at least to the standard of a collector. And Public Works is looking into that. Another change that has taken place in this area is the creation of the Economic Development Incentive Zone. This piece of property, as you see, falls within that zone. The future land use map designates, this is the future land use map of the city. It designates this property for commercial development. Or the area in red, that is commercial development. This area in light yellow, that is residential. And the area in green, that is suburban agricultural residential district.
Hey, Hassan, how far west does that urban boundary go? Does it go all the way to Jonesboro?
It goes all the way to where you have the golf course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome, sir. Based on the general character of this area, based on changes that are going on in terms of economics, the imperative is basically it has to be done, improvement on Christian Church Road, the future land use map designating this property for commercial development, the current zoning of the property in the county being even more intensive than the B4 zoning district, and considering also the discussion that we had already on enterprise funds with respect to extension of water and sewer to this site, staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Asong. Do we have any further questions for staff at this point?
Hey, Son, can you
Son,
put back up the economic incentive zone picture, please?
Yes, sir. I have it up.
Okay. And point out where this property lands. I'm missing right there. Okay, I got it.
Right here.
So the way I understand it, if any of that property is inside that semicircle kind of thing, all of it is.
All of it is, yes, sir. So all the property that is here on this map that is yellow, that is inside the incentive zone.
Okay, thank you.
And Asang, does Ballard own that entire chunk of land we're talking about?
Across this property,
They own that. Yeah.
this one that is zone ROTP, this one in blue, Ballard owns all of this.
That's the one we're hoping they're going to let us put a right of way and a road through the middle of it at some point if they decide to develop it. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Hassan, do the improvements that are expected to be made along Christian Church Road, which are necessitated by the development, would they include the extension of water and sewer automatically, or would that only be something that would follow as properties are annexed into the city limits?
I think the improvement of the road is something that can happen before the annexation of properties into the city. But if we have this property annexed into the city, this one, there had been some discussion in the past of a possible development that was going to go in here that did not go through. If we have another significant development occurring here, that just calls for the improvement of that road.
But the improvement would not necessarily occur.
It's possible to put the two together. It's possible because especially if you look at where the sewer line, the water and the sewer lines are going to be laid, we certainly would not want to be in a situation where we construct the street and then a year down the line, you're cutting up the street to install the water and the sewer line. It's possible that all of them can be done at once.
Stacy, I think it's fair to say, and Hassan, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's fair to say if you're going to do any kind of bringing any business or anything into that area, you're going to have to do quite a bit of work on that road because it is not in good shape and will not handle heavy traffic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I drove it yesterday.
I mean, the story is, though, that the city is already stuck because of how TDOT decided to reroute traffic. The city, and they would not give the city any funds to redevelop this road, but most of that road is going to already have to be redeveloped to reroute the traffic. Is that correct, Asong?
Yes, sir.
I mean, so we're already stuck having to develop that. I mean, this development zone is going to happen.
So Mr. Chairman, Tim, if I could. If you all recall during the conversation that occurred with the previous annexation request, which was 3 acres of this tract,
You mean at the boxing clinic, Preston?
there was no definite use identified. That's not what it was identified as.
That's not true, sir. I saw the paperwork where it said Suboxone Clinic. I'm just clarifying what you're talking about.
So the 3 acre tract was a part of this tract. And if you recall, part of that conversation at that time, and this was prior to the serious economic downturn that we're experiencing right now, the state had agreed to participate in the widening of Christian Church Road. So there was a participation agreement with the state. Now, with recent economic conditions, budgets unknown, both at the local level and at the state level, we don't know, what their level of participation could be in the future, but it is expected, I would go so far as to say anticipated, that the state would participate with Christian Church Road. The other is, keep in mind that part of the argument and the concern with the 3 acre annexation was that that was such a small piece of land. And this is something that I know Commissioner Calhoun can certainly remember from their lengthy discussion at the city commission level, that with such a small piece of land, the part of the question was extension of public services for that size of land. What you're looking at now is nearly 20 acres of land, and it changes the development potential for that property, which could significantly change the timing with which Christian Church Road gets improved, and the level of participation from the state. But those are all conversations we would need to have with the department heads of water and sewer and the department head of public works, along with city management.
What about the infrastructure improvement for the road? What was that going to cost? I remember that was going to be over 100,000. Isn't that what that Phil had mentioned? For
those numbers were moving all the time, and they could be very different in the future, because number one, again, depending on budgets, both local and state budgets in FY21 moving into FY22. But then the other consideration is what will this impact have on contract costs? There is some conversation about will construction costs come back down just a bit, like they did after the last 08, 09, 10 recession. So a lot of unknowns right now, but annexation of nearly 20 acres of property in an area that has a future land use for commercial and is within your economic incentive zone, I believe is a different conversation than what was had with the 3 acres.
Great.
Any further questions for staff? This Jamie, were you going to say something?
I said agreed. I agree with everything he said.
Okay. Anybody else have any further comments or discussion or questions for staff before we go to public comment?
I may have missed it, but Song, did you address why we're just talking about a portion of the property, not the entire property?
No, sir, I had not addressed that. It's very possible the developer or the property owner is working on the possibility of having just more than these annexed into the city sometime in future, from the discussion we had with him. I think he's got some other real estate outside of the city, Pigeon Forge area, that he's been kind of looking at, just kind of getting things wrapped up. It's very possible that we will be having the request to annex more of this property sometime in future.
It just seems like it would be an easier yes if he was trying to annex the entire property, not just a section of it. I guess I don't quite understand that.
I'm curious from Commissioner Calhoun, what are your thoughts? You've seen this part of this property at the city commission level.
Well, we really tried very hard to make a decision based on the sort of the planning piece of this versus use, because we really shouldn't be thinking about use at that point in time. But it was, as has already been mentioned, it's very hard to separate. I think, not speaking for the other commissioners, but I know for me personally, the fact that the last time we looked at this, it was such a very small piece of land that that was being requested, and all of our comments were coming back, well, why not more of the land? And there really wasn't really good reason given to the commission at that point in time, and it was turned down. And I think most of us at that meeting says, this is going to happen again. This land and its location, it's going to come up again. And especially since it's in the economic incentive zone. And I read all the public comments and I share their concerns, but we really push the owner, developer, don't come back with a very small piece of property. Come back with something that fits more with our future development of that particular area. And I know my comments at that point in time was, this isn't the last time we're going to look at this. And I think that they came back, and certainly we don't know what's going to go there. The zoning is important, but I'm like Commissioner Whitfield. I wish it was the largest, all of the property, but it's certainly a large parcel of land that fits within that economic incentive zone. I can't tell you what will happen at the city commission long term, but I know that was one of the pushbacks of the amount of the property versus usage at that point in time.
Thank you. Before we go to the public comment, any further questions of staff? I'm not hearing any. Let's go ahead and open up the public comment. Secretary Wild, would you mind reading the comments for us?
Certainly. Our first one is from Randy Silliman, and this was sent today. Good morning. I hope this email finds you and your families well through this trying time in our world. Hopefully this pandemic will remind us all of the importance of cherishing time with family and friends and preserving the environment for future generations. Even though this is a very difficult time, I believe it is giving us more appreciation for Mother Earth and respect for our ancestors who not only built what we enjoy today, but also what hardships they went through to get us here. In my lifetime, I've never once experienced hunger. However, going to the grocery store and seeing empty shelves has been sobering, to say the least. What we are experiencing today makes me even more passionate about preserving the way of life in this area. Farming is paramount to our very existence. I went online the other day to purchase seeds to replenish our stock. There were no organic seeds to be found. They were all sold out for the time being. This should tell us all something about this future generation. It is obvious the majority of people are becoming more concerned about what they are eating as opposed to what they are wearing, etc. This leads me to the fact that it is more important than ever to preserve our farmland and to teach our children this way of life. That certainly was our intention when we left the city and moved to Washington County. People move to the county because they want to farm and embrace a simpler way of life away from the smog and traffic and crime of the city. Once again, we are requesting Boones Creek Road and the Christian Church property, which is the entrance to our neighborhood and where 3 of our neighbors dwell, remain in the county. Christian Church Road is a county road, and the property in question is also in the county and non-contiguous in relation to the city. At this point, we feel we are being donut holed and forced into annexation. We purchased our home in the county because we want to live and farm and raise our families in the county. If we had wanted to be in the city, we would have purchased a home in the city. We all feel we are being forced to change our way of life. Furthermore, this farmland and the springs and creeks out here are a natural habitat for wildlife. We have deer, turkey, geese, and so many different kinds of rare birds. We also have horses, cows, and chickens on our farms. Noise, smog, and pollution, the general disturbance of the land and environment would negatively affect the well-being of our farms, our animals, its natural habitat, and therefore our livelihood. Last but not least, we have several county schools in this area. People move out to the county to live in the county and to send their children to county schools. It is a way of life out here. The children of these county schools deserve an environment that is wholesome and pure. They need playgrounds and soccer fields. They need 4-H clubs and grass under their feet. They need places to rodeo and show horses. People move to the county because they want these things for themselves and for their families. We are asking you to prayerfully consider our concerns and also that you respect our way of life. We ask that you put yourselves in our shoes and think about how it would feel to have your way of life totally turned upside down. We also ask that you reflect on the importance of farming in this area and how it has benefited us all, not only in the past, but also in our uncertain future. Thank you in advance for your time and consideration in honoring our request. We love this area we call home. We appreciate all you do for the betterment of the city. We simply request that you honor and respect what we do to maintain and preserve our county, farms, and way of life. We have the best of both worlds right here in the city and the county. I'm optimistic that we can find a way to maintain what we have in the city and still preserve our beautiful county, all while striving to complement each other without taking away the beauty and benefits of both resources. We pray God's will be done and that he guides you and protects you and yours. With kindest regards, Randy and Kim Silliman.
Where do they live again? Does anybody know where they live in relation to this?
I do
Yeah,
not-
they live right out as the road bends around. They live back towards town.
Doesn't the sewer have to go through
Right
their
in the middle
property?
of it. Say again?
Doesn't the sewer have to go through their property?
No. It does not.
They're past the railroad track there. Is that correct?
Yes, they are.
Okay, gotcha.
They're very close to the railroad track, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I see.
And while I'm talking, I want to throw out, if you think the comments and the agitation was big about the previous annexation, wait till you hear all this. It's huge. I hear it every day.
All right, are we ready for the next one?
Yes, please.
Okay, this one is from Chris Brown, and it was sent yesterday on April 26th. To whom it may concern, as the owner of 30+ properties in Johnson City, Tennessee, one of which is within a half mile of the property in question, I vehemently oppose the annexation to a B4 zoning. There are lots of homes and families with children in close proximity to this property, including schools. We should be doing our part to keep drug users, recovering or not, from being corralled into a residential area such as this. Ask yourselves if you and your family live directly in the area that will become infected with this type of business. Would you vote yes? We all know what is coming if this property is successfully rezoned. Sometimes human decency and integrity need to outweigh the almighty dollar. Thank you in advance for putting the families first when deciding to deny this request for rezoning.
Okay.
And that was, again, Chris Brown. The next one is from Kristen Young and Kevin Malukowicz. This one was sent on Friday, April 24th.
Hey, Stacy, the Sillimans live on Kiefhofer Road. I couldn't think of the name of it.
Thank you.
All right. This one is addressed to Hassan and Mayor Brock. Please do not annex the 19.57 acre portion of tax map 028 parcel 065 at the intersection of Christian Church Road and Boone Station Road. Do not make any assignment of B4 arterial business to the property. We are neighbors and property owners and could see this from our yard. This area is farm and neighborhood on a peaceful country road and quiet country living, and we want to keep it that way. All right, the following one, this was sent on the 23rd. I believe that was last Thursday. And this is from Larry and Karina Weems, and they live at 125 Richland Heights. I'm not sure where that is. To
Right
whom it
next
may,
to the Harrell house.
where?
It's right next to my house.
Oh, okay. All right. To whom it may concern, we purchased our home, which was a foreclosure at 125 Richard Heights, Gray, Tennessee, to be in the county and outside of Johnson City, Tennessee city limits and away from the traffic as well as city taxes. We own and run a very busy State Farm agency in Jonesboro. Our whole reason for moving and purchasing Richland Heights was for the beautiful mountain views and to acquire some land for our family and our 3 dogs to run on. We also now have a quiet street to safely do our nightly walks on. This property is our biggest investment in which we have poured money, time, and energy into it to make it livable again and maintain well. If we wanted to be in the city of Johnson City, we would have purchased there instead. We have 3 neighbors that live at the corner of the property you are trying to develop and annex that would not be able to pay city taxes and also cannot handle the crime rates increasing. There's plenty of undeveloped land in Johnson City that could be developed without interrupting our peace, wildlife, and bringing more pollution and noise to our rural neighborhood that is full of horses, cattle, birds, farms, etc. Please consider the many families and the history we have in Gray, Tennessee, and the lives that this would disrupt if you continue with this annexation. I do also understand by the research we have done that this annexation of our property, as well as our neighbors, is not even contiguous with the neighboring parts of the city. Let us know what we can do to put a stop to this as soon as possible. And that was signed by Larry Weems and Karina Weems.
Okay.
Our next one is from Julia Martin. It was also sent last Thursday. I am highly opposed to the proposal to annex Boones Creek land into the city. My nephew lives at the corner of Christian Church Lane and Boones Station Road. This area is not truly safe for high traffic. It is hard to see oncoming traffic at that intersection. If someone missed the left turn onto Boones Station Road, they would drive up my nephew's driveway. This is a quiet, peaceful farm area. The noise and pollution will irritate and be a danger to the animals, plus the inhabitants who have lived in their homes for many years. This property is in the county and has no direct connection to Johnson City. My nephew has mental health issues and noise stimulates his problems. Plus, I don't want strangers to disturb his peace and quiet. Please vote against the intrusion into the county. And one final one is from David Hodge. This was sent on Friday. It too is addressed to Hassan. I received your letter dated April 17th, 2020 concerning the annexation of property identified as that 19.57 acre portion of tax map 028 parcel 065 at the intersection of Christian Church Road and Boone Station Road, with the assignment of the B4 zoning district for the property. This requested annexation into the city limits of Johnson City is being made with the understanding that the city will extend city water and sewer to the property, which is approximately 600 to 700 feet from the property on Christian Church Road. Should you have any questions, you may contact me by. Thank you for your time and service. And I'm not sure, Hassan, you marked that one in favor of annexation. I'm a little confused what that individual was trying to say, so maybe you can enlighten us. It was signed by Lynn Hodge, by the way.
Lynn Hodge, he is the property owner. Or he works with the property owner. So he's kind of the representative of the applicant.
Okay.
So he just basically sent this to me saying, kind of just reminding that I've received your letter on April 17, indicating that this will be on the Planning Commission agenda and that we have an understanding that this property is going to be Zone B4 and the city will provide these services. So,
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you very much for reading that, Commissioner Wild. Is anybody aware of any other further public comment to be received? General Harrell, you sound like you've heard some. Is there anything else we need to know?
This is even more unpopular than the previous motion, Tim, and where we tried to annex, or where the property was tried to be annexed. There is a huge groundswell of support against this annexation. Most people that live out here do not want to see it happen. There may be some I have not talked to that do, but they know I'm on the commission. So when I drive down the road, I get lots of, hey, you know about this? Tell them to stop.
To hear. I have a question for staff with this, and maybe Commissioner Calhoun, because you've dealt with it, the economic incentive zone. What does it mean that it passes through this property in relation to us? Does that, what are the implications of that?
to benefit from the economic incentive zone, the property has to be in the city, I believe. So whatever incentives are included in that packet for the property owner to get into that agreement and benefit from whatever provisions may be made in future, that property has to be in the city, cannot be in the county.
So we have the ballot group that goes B4. So, I mean, you could decide at any point, road or natural boundary, to decide that this is a borderline between what we're going to consider agricultural and low density area in business. You could have a traditional, down zoning as you move across, or you can just simply leave it agricultural. Like you said, in the county, they could turn this into industrial, but still, you won't get any economic incentive out of that. So there's a lot of community, that's a lot of feedback against this, and twice now, really.
Something to keep in mind is that, and you're exactly right, that this kind of feedback was anticipated. We informed the applicant of this. He is aware of this kind of feedback. Keep in mind that, and Asan showed it on the screen, the future land use map shows this area east of, right, thank you. The future land use map, which for those of you who are watching this, those colors you see on the map, those are not zoning districts. Those are not the underlying zoning that controls how land can be used or developed. What that is that map indicates how the city commission voted to apply future land development potential. What did the city see would happen with the property in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? So what you're looking at there is a policy map, not a zoning map. And so what the city commission saw when they adopted the land use, the latest version of the land use plan, I believe it was in 06.
That's what I was going to ask next. That's a 14-year-old plan now. Yeah.
Right. But what was adopted is that it is most likely that commercial would extend from the interchange, which is exit 17, as far west as the railroad tracks. And bless you. And then from the railroad tracks, it would in fact fall off quite sharply, just as you mentioned, Chairman Zions. But the way that the future land use map recommends is that sharp change in land use does not occur at Christian Church Road, it occurs at the railroad tracks. So the land use map does in fact support much of what is being commented about, or does in fact support the concerns because you can see that that light green color is in fact very low density residential and ag from the railroad tracks west. So the land use map supports the concerns of the community. It's just on the right-hand side or the east side of the railroad tracks where the land use designation is such.
You know, one other factor that plays into this is there's still quite a few people out here smarting over the sewage decision and where it's going. They don't know, but it's going through farms. And the consensus of opinion is the city is running roughshod over them. That's not true, but that feeds into this.
You almost get the feeling with this development that it's maybe inevitable, but not yet. The infrastructure is not there yet. There's a lot that hasn't taken place to force it. And the land use plan map is getting a little older. And I've seen boundaries that we've decided upon in other places around the city that literally were just divided across, by a road. I don't know what the right answer is, but it's hard to ignore some of the public comment that's going on right there. The railroad track is definitely a hard boundary, but you could have Christian Church Road be a hard boundary as well, if you chose to, at least for now. It's just something to consider, given the strong feedback that we're getting and the fact that all this is pretty early. And also that you're not seeing a flesh out from the arterial road up to that farm. That's one of the things that bothers me too, is that we're not working from Bruins Creek Road out. We're starting further away and working in. And again, that puts the city out having to actually pay for all the infrastructure going out there. And that hasn't developed yet. And that was one of the concerns last time at the city commission level. Is my understanding. Commissioner Calhoun can discuss that. But hey, we're still, it's not 3 acres, but it's 20, but it's still at the watershed end of it. It's not on the Boones Creek Road side of it. We'd expect it to naturally start.
That was considered. Can y'all hear me?
You've cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, I've lost my screen, so I'm gonna have to log off and get back in because I can't see anything that y'all are putting up.
Commissioner Calhoun, that happened to me, and it was my screen setting where it went to sleep on me. I could still hear, but I couldn't see anymore. So you might just touch your touchpad or something, see if you can wake it back up that way.
I've tried that. I think being 71, I go to sleep a lot, so I don't know.
We can see you.
Yeah.
While we're on that, I had to switch devices. Am I still there?
Yes,
you are. If the webmaster is still there, I'm going to log off and try to get back on because I need to see the maps, etc. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. You can go ahead while Commissioner Calhoun logs back in.
The people who made the comments, the public feedback, how far away do they reside from this property?
Right on top of it, Chris.
Most of them reside in this area in the county. And most of them reside in this area. A lot of this area is still farmland undeveloped, in the immediate vicinity. So most of them reside in this area. And just to mention something on the comment we had for extension of utilities up the road, water and sewer is already available right up to this point on the Ballard Head property. So that extension cost that we have will not be from Boones Creek Road onto this property. It will rather be from the property line of Ballard Head going in. So we already have some water and sewer on that road.
Song, I have a question. In the packet you gave us some the annexation policies. I guess it's from the city code, section 1.5.2.1 through 4. And so reading through that, I guess it talks about being financial stability for the city. It's a criteria to be annexed to the city. It should be cost effective. And it talks about having specific development proposals. So the way I'm reading it, and I would like some feedback from you and from any one of the commissioners, it seems like 3 out of 4 criteria are not currently being met, but you're still recommending approval of it. Can you just walk me through that decision, please?
And it's important that you actually mentioned this policy. I remember when we're dealing with a 3-acre piece at the city commission, this is the policy that was quoted and used to turn down the request. So the policy you just mentioned is important in this consideration. 1.5.2.3. Now again, this is not the law. This is the policy, kind of like the guidelines. 1.5.2.3 says to the extent possible. So I took that introductory phrase into consideration. If there was a project that was already available at this moment, I would include that in the report and say, this is a project that you already have, and I would take that project into consideration in making the fiscal impact analysis. So it says to the extent possible, request for annexation shall be accompanied by specific development proposals. Now, as read, it's not saying if there is no development proposal, then don't annex it. No, that's not what it's saying. It's saying to the extent possible, if there is a specific development proposal. That's important because it helps us in making a better fiscal impact analysis, cannot be actual and not just projectory. And also, it can assist much in determining the specific land use. However, whatever that specific use that is proposed may be, whatever zoning district that is assigned to that particular piece of property is assigned to, other uses are still permitted, that are applicable in that zoning district. So that's a consideration we took in evaluating the application of that 1.5.2.3. The last element, areas considered for annexation shall be consistent with adopted land use policies of the city. We looked at the future land use map that this property is planned for commercial development. The zoning district that he is requesting is commercial in character. The commercial districts, B4, B5, they're generally along collector and arterial roads. We took into consideration that there is the impending anticipated improvement of Christian Church Road. It has to happen, whether we annex this property or not. That road has to be improved. So we took that into consideration in making the recommendation for this to be zoned B4. And then lastly, the general character of the area is commercial, right up to the railway that provides that hard break from residential to commercial development. And then the provision of services to areas considered for annexation shall be efficient and cost effective. Now, the Water and Sewer Department estimates that it will cost $33,000 to extend water to the site and $98,000 to extend sewer to this property, to this particular property. A couple of things about that. As we've mentioned, that would have to come from a different fund than the taxes. These lines will be constructed along Christian Church Road, so there will not be additional costs incurred in acquiring easements. The utility lines could also serve other properties in the immediate area. For example, if that 3-acre piece of property is developed in future, this line will also serve it. So it's a cost that is going to be borne by more properties than just this particular piece of property. And this is a user fee system, will be applicable here. They will have to be paying whatever development goes on that property, whatever development goes on the adjoining 3-acre piece, and this other piece that they're currently living in the county. If it's left in the county, whether you're in the county or you're in the city, you pay water and sewer fees. And in the county, it's actually double. If that project is left in the county, it's actually double what you will have if it's in the city. So we took that into consideration. And also this red line, this is the urban services area. That is the limit where the city in the comprehensive plan has basically said we will extend urban services, water, sewer, right up to this area. From this point onward, it would be too expensive for us to do. So this particular piece of property falls within that urban services area. And with the economic incentive zone, I mean, as we did mention, something's going to go on around here that will require those urban services to be provided. That is what we took in consideration in recommending in favor of the annexation.
I'm a little confused. If the current water and sewer, if I'm looking at that correctly, extends where that purple and brown line extends, so up into that 3-acre property that was not annexed, it really is a cost of $131,000 total to extend the water and sewer 3 acres further to this property?
From that point, from here right up to this property is about 650 something feet. It's all about the length.
Right.
The land that will have to extend the line through. And they also look at things like pressure, the topography of the different considerations, different things they may have to do to actually make this work.
Okay, I'm going to throw out some numbers, and I'm not sure that I am for or against this yet. But again, with the current cost that's proposed, there would be a return of investment of 109 years if the property is not developed for the cost of the water and sewer. Even if the tax rate is increased from the 25 to 45%, it still only would generate $2160 a year as an undeveloped property. And so we're still looking at a 60-year return on investment. So those are just some calculations. And again, I understand in the previous one, it was explained to us that we're never going to break even on that. Yeah. But it is something that I wanted to throw out for consideration for people.
It's my understanding, and I don't have all the thoughts in my head on this, or I may not have accurate information, but it's my understanding that there is some development concern about, or questions about developing much more than just this corner tract, but more of the land moving towards Boones Creek. And here again, we see this incomplete request for annexation. And we still, according to the criteria, 1.5.2.3, we don't have, we don't have this specific development plan. I guess that that's there, and it just makes me feel like it's incomplete or almost, but not yet. And why aren't we flushing this out from Boones, from the arterial street all the way out? That would seem to make more sense. It has that feel again of, okay, it's not 3 acres, but it's 19. And now I can put my specific use there that I have in mind and still not bring the others into the city. And I wonder about why it's being, developed that way, or how that's going to work in the city. Are we going to end up creating this sort of a donut there? Is this an orderly way of annexing it if it's going to turn into a business? Where should this line be? Those are some questions I'm going to throw out to see if anybody else has any thoughts on that. But it's particularly, still again, with the developer, why just 19 acres instead of more? Commissioner Calhoun in particular, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's a lot more land than before. Yep. And I share your concerns about, first of all, the unknown of what is going there. And I would love to see a more complete, this is what we plan on doing on that piece of property. And I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the owner doesn't own all the way to Boones Creek Road. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So obviously that's a response that, well, we don't own all the way to Boones Creek Road. This is what we own. I think we'd be in a better position if that entire amount of land was part of the request. However, I think those are questions that's gonna, if this gets to the city commission, having gone through it 3 times already, I think everybody's right. There's a lot of passion about this, and I share a lot of the concerns on and the balance of what we're going to disrupt some lifestyles there for sure. But then again, you have to balance of what's going to happen in the future, and is this orderly or not? And I think that's where a lot of this landed last time, was the orderly development issue.
That's my concern. It seems like if there was a larger development group with a plan that kind of fit in with what the community would expect and had more trust with there, that this would be something to be easier to say yes to. That's just the feel I'm getting from the public and hearing your comments as well. So thank you.
Yeah, it seems like a really large capital investment, and we don't really quite know what we're investing into yet because we don't have any kind of proposal for development.
Yeah, this maybe one day, but not yet. I don't. That's kind of my feel. But we have been having. We did read the public comment. Let's remind ourselves of that, and therefore we're going to close the public comment. We've been having discussion. I'm glad to entertain any further discussion or motions at this point.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, only thing I would want to just add to the tail end of that little bit of conversation, kind of in the same vein as the comment you made about the land use plan. You're right. There's some time now that's passed on the land use plan, and it does require updating. But I do believe that, at least for now, it is consistent with the development pattern in that area and anticipated development pattern, especially if the incentive zone grows. But the comment that I was going to make is that what we find ourselves in today's market is the competitiveness of today's market often prevents an applicant from being able to reveal too much due to non-disclosure agreements and other competitive issues. And so it puts the applicant or the landowner or the developer in a real pickle. And they know that. We have these conversations with them at the administrative level in advance of board meetings before coming to the planning commission or the city commission. They don't like being in that predicament any more than you dislike not knowing, because they know that the ability to reveal will make things easier. So I just throw that out there, that the market is a little bit different now. And certainly the board's going to go in the direction that they wish. One comment that I would add or suggest for your consideration that I was going to ask on the previous request is keep in mind that you can certainly vote in favor or you can vote against. You can also vote to table and send this to a committee. If you wanted to send this to a committee, you could send this to a committee and potentially have open conversation with the applicant that you're not able to have tonight. So I'd want to talk to the city attorney about how that looks in a virtual world, but just want to toss out that you have those 3 options.
Thank you.
Two comments, Chairman Zients. First of all, is it not reasonable to assume or expect that with this new incentive district that the land use plan probably is more realistic than, even if it is 14 years old? There's got to be there's obviously some additional incentives that are going to be attractive to developers in that same area along Christian Church Road. The other question, more of a question, is do I understand correctly that the requester is putting a caveat, if you will, that the services of water and sewer in fact are extended to the property? Is that correct, Asan?
Yes, sir. There is that expectation that by annexing this property, the city will extend water and sewer to the property. even if it didn't have that expectation, we will still, just as we had a discussion in the previous annexation, we will have to cover when and how we're going to extend water and sewer to the property. Because we are required by state law to cover those services. Yeah. And the way it's currently worded, water and sewer has gone, department, they have gone back and forth on this particular annexation to really kind of nail down what they believe is feasible and will be acceptable based on their funds. And it basically reads, public water service will be extended within 5 years from the effective date of the annexation, or before the development on the site obtains a certificate of occupancy, whichever is earlier. That means if next year there is a development that shows up on that particular site, before it obtains a certificate of occupancy, we will provide them with water. The same thing reads for sewer. So if we have known, then we've got up to 5 years to get it done. And that can be extended.
How does that how does that differ from our discussion about the previous annexation, where we could have up to 5 or even 10 years to extend it?
It's basically the same. We can change that 5 years to 10 years. But what I'm saying is the water and sewer department, looking at their budget, looking at their plans, believe that they can do it within 5 years.
Fair enough, but getting to Commissioner Wiles' concern, could we not approve the annexation without committing to a time frame of extending the services?
We can do 10 years.
Or some extended period of time.
We can have it 20 years, or when a development shows up. Because usually when you have a proposed development on the site, especially for a commercial piece of property, then at that time they want to hook up to city water, they want to hook up to city sewer in order to operate. That's why we have that element of before they get a certificate of occupancy for the development.
What if they decide suddenly to build a tiny house and put it on that property? The
B4 zoning district would not permit a tiny house.
Okay. I mean, but the smallest permissible structure that is not going to really generate significant tax revenue, we would be committed to providing water and sewer because a certificate of occupancy would need to be issued, correct?
Yes, but from a practical perspective, as it was mentioned earlier, really having a 19-acre piece of property and having, let's say, 1,000 square feet commercial building on the side, I wonder who is going to buy a 19-acre piece of property to do that. In an economic incentive zone that, I mean, I looked at the value of this property in the market now, I think it's something like, it's in the millions.
Can you hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
No. You sound awful hoarse.
It's a barky cough you got.
Yeah.
It's getting chippy.
Your iPad, your sound is off there, Jamie.
We can't.
Unmute now. How's that?
That's good.
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Okay. My only thought on this is, I hear what you guys are saying, but from a planning perspective, there's more opportunity for growth going north and west out this corridor than if you just took the last piece of property. The growth has already happened, and we would just be adding one piece of property. Here, I think there's an opportunity to add multiple pieces of property, even though you're specifically going to this one property. There's a lot more infill that should happen between the Boones Creek Road and this particular piece of property. And if you look at most cities' growth across the country, the growth happens north and west of your CBD, of your central business district. So if you're going to take a gamble, this would be a better gamble than the gamble we looked at before, in my opinion.
Well, and that's the tension. We hear what the people are saying, but this is right in that economic incentive zone. There is going to be a road built right up from the 600.
Right. So
This is obviously going to be developed. And as I said before, you can make a hard zone and just say, hey, we're going to change the land use plan because it's 14 years old and knock out that side on the left. But this is an unusual place to do it. And the railroad track is a very hard boundary.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, so I think it's reasonable to logically going along with the land use plan, with the economic incentive zone, with the absolute requirement for an infrastructure upgrade. You can't, it's and with the fact that this is a larger piece of land, you start getting in that area, we need to catch it. The only thing I'd really love to see is a better plan for what's going to happen and possibly more land. Anybody else?
well, the value of the land gets more expensive once you become instead of agricultural city, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
So that's why-
once it's annexed into the city, the value of that property is going to go up.
Absolutely. Now, his risk also, though, is once he's annexed, if he doesn't sell it, he's got city property taxes on 19 acres. I think that's not a good choice for him either.
Property tax vacant is $1,200.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But okay, does anybody else have any further discussion or would like to make a motion?
I also think there's just a lot of, I don't know. I think there's a lot of unknown right now, especially in retail development, given the current circumstances we've all experienced for the past month or two, that I think is going to spill over. And I think it may adversely affect retail development moving forward. And so I think while a lot of this was very kind of guaranteed 2 months ago, I think, I don't know, I feel like a wet towel's been thrown. I just feel like a lot of this development might be slowed down considerably now, given our current economic standings.
I think whenever you're looking at this sort of a thing around an interstate, a freeway interchange, that you're really not looking at months or even a few years. You're really making a plan and you're planning along the land use for what's going to happen over the next 15 years or 20 years. It's really the 20-year plan. And over 20 years, you're going to see this zone. So we're really kind of talking about, is this railroad track going to be the hard zone for this or not? Does this make sense over the long haul or not? I'd love to have more certainty and more transparency in the developer from a developer. I'm really not really pleased with that.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like I completely agree with what you're saying. I think this is going to happen. I think maybe it's been pushed down the road a little bit more, but I feel like if it's pushed down the road, can we also not just table this and visit this later when one, it's the whole property or it's more property, and two, when we actually have a proposal for development? Because right now it's a lot of money and I really don't know what we're investing it into. I mean,
but we don't have to commit to spend the money. Correct?
Yeah, they have to. We could put that 20 years on the service agreement for the sewer. We can say, look, we're going to hold out for 20 years if we want to, unless you have a certificate of occupancy agreement, in which case we'd expect them to build something that would actually return some significant revenue.
I think that's probably about the only way I'd feel comfortable moving forward on this, but that's my personal opinion.
I move we approve the request for annexation and that it be zone B4, but that we do, can we just say we don't commit to any plan of services, or do we have to put a time frame on it?
Let's put a time.
And that our commitment to plan of services is 20 years.
You mean commitment to water and sewer?
Yes.
Yes.
Not to speak for you, sorry.
No.
Unless you have a certificate of occupancy, like you had the trigger.
Unless they have a development going on the side, and then before they get a certificate of occupancy.
That'd be a separate decision.
Yep. Do we have a motion on the floor? Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a second. So for this particular motion, do we have any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and have Nicole call the roll.
Could you read the motion, please?
Yes, I'll try to restate it for Commissioner Cooper. We have a motion and a second from Commissioner Cooper and Commissioner Wild is the second, that we approve this annexation and the B4 zoning with an amendment to the proposed plan of services to state that we will provide as a city water and sewer services not within 5 years, but within 20 years, or when the development obtains a certificate of occupancy, whichever is earlier.
Thank you.
Just one point of discussion before a roll is called.
Yes.
Was the consensus that we were most concerned with the lack of a development plan versus the cost of the infrastructure? I'm just trying to make sure that I understood the conversation, that we were again more concerned with what is going to happen in this tract versus what is the ultimate cost to extend services to this tract.
That was one of the concerns. I guess everybody have to speak for themselves if it's the consensus or not. And we were offered by Preston an option to table this. And if we have that, and we can have a discussion with the developer to try to help us answer and understand more what's going on. And does anybody else have any thoughts on tabling this, or any thoughts on the consensus for the being comfortable with the development?
I think my concerns are, going back to the annexation policy, for me, it still feels like it doesn't really answer many of the policy guidelines they give us, maybe 1 out of the 4, the way I'm reading it. But also what Commissioner Wild said, that, even if it's not developed 60 to 100-year return on investment, all the public comment that we received, there seemed to be a strong voice against this. I don't know, I guess I have a lot of reservations with it.
I'll give a little just of my history, just on the commission. When you have something that's discharged from the citizens, they really don't like it. And we really have a few very reasonable objections. It's already gone to city commission, and it's now a somewhat modified state. I would be all for tabling this and us doing some due diligence and putting some, sweat and work into understanding it better, to try to help the landowner and understand what they're doing, at least communicate with them well, but also still to represent the citizens for what's going on there. And then just to be good stewards of the city's finances. So I'm fine. We don't have to be in a hurry to do this, to table it.
Tim, could I make a motion to table it?
We need to deal with a motion on the table first.
Okay.
Bob, you'd have to move to remove your motion, or you'd have to ask that we go ahead and vote on it.
Point of question, if the current motion is voted upon and does not pass, could then a motion be made to table it, or does it die? Or is the recommendation just a no that we send forward?
Because it would be sort of, I think it wouldn't be expressly denied. You'd have to have a motion to deny potentially.
Okay.
So
You do.
you could go
Yeah,
ahead.
if the motion fails, the motion fails.
And so a second motion could be made.
A failure of a motion is not synonymous with a recommendation to deny.
Exactly. So we can call a vote on the motion that's on the table, or Bob can offer to rescind the motion.
Sorry, before we vote, another point of question. If we decide to table this and speak to the landowners, at that point, could we discuss further if they have any plans for development, or are they thinking about or considering using their whole lot of land and not just a portion of it?
I think that'd be a reasonable thing of discussion. Preston, you have to tell us if we have that ability to ask those, but I think it's a reasonable discussion.
Absolutely. You can ask the question. Now, whether or not he has the ability to disclose, that's up to him, but you certainly have the ability to ask.
We can find out how comfortable we want to be and how transparent they want to be with the development planning that we have to do.
So I have a question, please. So if we do that, that's not considered spot zoning if we're just discussing annexation, and because it's already zoned, is that right?
It would not be considered spot zoning. Keep in mind that spot zoning, the test to prove spot zoning now nationwide is very difficult. One of the things that supports this not being spot zoning is that the B4 zoning is consistent with the land use plan.
And there's going to be B4 right across the street, most likely.
Well, just All right, thank you.
But we do have a motion on the floor, and I haven't heard Bob comment on what he'd like to do. Would you like us to vote on it?
Please.
Okay. Stacy, would you still like to vote on it?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and, if there's no further discussion, we'll call the roll.
Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Dagenhart,
No.
Nicole, I'm sorry, can you just phrase what we're voting for and against, please, for clarification?
would Vice Chairman Cooper mind rephrasing exactly what he's motioning?
My original motion was to approve the annexation and to approve and to designate B1 or B4 zone, but that we, instead of committing to a 5-year water and sewer plan of services, we would commit to a 20-year.
Unless it's certificate of occupation.
Right. Unless there's a certificate of occupation, is that correct, Bob?
Well, I'm not sure that's needed. I mean, if they come to us with a plan of development, isn't that a separate decision that then we can make about the plan of services?
I think developers generally want to get a sense of commitment at the time that they propose a development on the site. The developer wants to know that as I'm beginning to build this property, the city has a commitment to provide me those services. Because if you just put it out, this is kind of like an agreement, as I mentioned, between the city and the property owner. If we just put it out and say 20 years, and you have a development on that property 2 years from today, the city could say, we're only committed to providing you those services in 20 years. And the city will be legally okay to do that. And developers generally don't like that gray, that uncertainty. When they know that at the time of development of the property, you're going to extend services to that particular piece, they're more prone to doing the development. And I think immediately the city goes in and begins to improve that Christian Church Road, we're going to see that happen.
I understand. The problem I have is that I hear this, at least a part of the spirit of this conversation has been our concern about how that property is going to be used. So if we just say they get a certificate of occupancy, if it's a use we're not comfortable with.
The zoning district will already, by assigning zoning to the property, you already kind of predetermine what uses can go on the site, irrespective of the water and the sewer. So if you zone it B4, all the uses that are permitted in the B4 zoning district by right or by special exception can go on the site. So irrespective of extension of water and sewer, whatever use can go on that site is really determined by the zoning district that we assign to the property.
Okay, so I will restate it to include either 20-year period of providing water and sewer services or a certificate of occupancy.
Whichever is earlier.
Excuse me?
Whichever is earlier.
Whichever is earlier.
Okay. Having said that, Commissioner Cooper, would you like to go ahead and have Nicole start over with the roll again until we've restated the motion and clarified?
Fair enough, yes.
Okay, and is that okay with you, Commissioner Wild?
Yes.
Okay, let's recall the roll, Nicole, so now that we have clarified the motion.
Okay. Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Dagenhart,
No.
Commissioner Harrell,
No.
Commissioner Hickson,
Clay, you're
Excuse me,
muted.
sorry. I'll vote no.
okay. Commissioner Pavlich,
No.
Commissioner Whitfield,
No.
Commissioner Wild,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Can't hear you, Larry.
He was having to log back on. Is he back on yet?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm back.
Okay.
And I have heard what's going on. Given the dynamics of what I see happening here and knowing.
Larry, we're voting.
I know, but I'd like to make a comment before I vote. Is that
great.
appropriate?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Given the dynamics of the conversation and knowing where this is going and knowing that I'm going to vote on this when it does wind up at the city commission, I'm going to abstain from from voting on this motion. Is that appropriate?
Chicken.
What?
It'd really be nice to have your input and guidance so that we can make sure we're filling you guys in, to be honest.
All right.
Conflict of interest, really.
Commissioner,
yes.
that was,
Okay.
Okay. And, oh, where am I? And Chairman Zions.
No.
Okay. So the motion did not pass.
That particular motion did not pass, so we're not done with this issue yet. Per se, let's, does anybody have any other motions or ways they'd like to deal with the question at hand?
I mean, it seems like we could have two different motions now, either a motion to table this conversation and speak further with the developers, or a motion to deny it outright. Given, I want to provide benefit of the doubt, I would like to speak further with the developers. So I'd like to make a motion that we table this so that we can have a conversation with them and try to find more details on this.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table it and discuss it with the developers. Any discussion on this motion? I'm not hearing any, so let's go ahead and call the roll.
Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Dagenhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
okay, Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Wild,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes, if you make me vote.
and Chairman Zions.
Yes, that was good. All right, so
Chairman Zion, just to just to clarify this, so we're sending it to the Land Use and Transportation Committee to meet with the developer on this before we bring it back to the City Commission, to
I think so.
the
And I
Planning
think,
Commission.
and we should open that discussion up to any one of us who want to go ahead and sit down with the developer and have a discussion. I think that's fair. We'll make sure everybody's informed, and let's make sure it's at a time that's accessible to most people that can come. You know, I think this is one of those extra evening meetings, probably not middle of the workday kind of things, but an evening meeting with them and really spend some time on it if we need to. I mean,
the only,
It's-
so
Motion.
the only
It's
thing,
most likely going to be, a virtual meeting. We don't know what the future holds, but we'll work on that and then get back in touch with you.
that sounds fair.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
something we need to consider though is relying on those members of the committee in being able to work for the commission. What we need to be careful of is that we're not just going to hold a second planning commission meeting. So,
Okay.
yeah, because that would not be appropriate. We need to have a committee meeting. And
Yeah. Before we had the standing committees, we would actually just assign people to a special task like this.
Right. Well,
let-
even if you assigned people to a special task, you would assign a set number. Generally, that would be 3 or 4 folks, but not enough to have a quorum of the commission.
I have a question then since we have everybody here tonight, does anybody have a particular interest to want to speak with this developer? I know we have a particular standing committee for this, but this might be reasonable to have a special committee for it.
Keep in mind too, that you do not have the developer as the applicant. You have the property owner.
Right. I'd like to talk with the property owner, of course, but I would ask that they bring the developer.
If there is a developer, because
There
we
may
don't know.
not be a developer.
Okay.
I would be happy to be on it.
Okay, we have Dr. Whitfield's interested.
I'll
Jim,
do it. I'll do it.
What was that?
Gary.
I got Gary, I've got Whitfield.
I'll do it.
That's Stacy.
Stacy.
Okay, and I'd like to be a part of this. It's going to be, actually, I'll be honest, I can't say yes to this. Personally, I don't have the time right now. I'd really love to do it, but I just can't. I got to learn to say no on a couple of things.
I'll serve.
Okay, Bob. Okay, Cooper. Okay, so let's use that as the committee. That'll get you 4. Is that okay, Preston?
That's okay.
Perfect.
That's perfect.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, everybody willing to serve. Appreciate that.
There's 19 acres out there. You can stay distant when you meet. So just spread out.
All right, let's move on then to item number 4 on new business, which is the abandonment of a right-of-way.
Chairman, Planning Commissioners, this is a request to abandon a right-of-way, actually 2 right-of-way, 2 portions of Wall Street right-of-way and an alley that traverses the properties at 1008 East 8th Avenue and 1010 East 8th Avenue. The map you have on your screen, the one that has this red line. These red lines basically indicate alleys or right-of-ways that have been abandoned in the city in this area in the past. And if you look at the property that we're looking at, these are the 2 properties. This is 1008 and this is 1010 East 8th Avenue. Right now, it does not show when this subdivision was initially created over a century ago. An alley was established going all through from Lester Harris Road up to East Oakland Avenue. So this alley went all across, all through. And over the years, for some reason, you don't have these alley right-of-way lines showing across these properties. However, the city has never taken any formal step to abandon those alleys. So no formal step has been taken. It's very possible that the property owner, a single property owner, acquired all property on both sides, and for tax purposes, it was just put together as one, with the assumption that the alley had been abandoned, but there is no record. I did a lot of research on this, and I found that this Wall Street section, back in 1974, there was a request to abandon it. It passed Planning Commission, but failed at City Commission on 3rd reading. It actually passed 1st, 2nd, but at 3rd reading, it failed. So there's been that assumption that it was abandoned, but it was really not abandoned. The areas, as you see, they are not used for transportation. The alley doesn't cut through. It's not paved. It's not gravel. Nobody's driving through it. And the Wall Street section just has the driveway for this particular piece of property. This is Wall Street. Right now, it extends across Chiloé, East Chiloé Avenue, into that subdivision. There is that small road going in. That is still Wall Street. This section of Wall Street, which is highlighted here in yellow, will remain open. Fire truck, they're using it. Water, emergency services, police services, they're using that particular section of Wall Street. That is not to be closed. As indicated here, it is to remain open. So the only section of Wall Street we are closing, or that is proposed to be closed, is this section that is not being used by the public. And this alley that is no longer being used by the public for transportation. Although it's not being used, this particular section of the alley is not being used for transportation, there is a power line that goes through it. Staff send this request to the various utilities, districts, various department, agencies, ADMOS, Energy, all of them. They had no issues with closing the alley. Staff recommends that the Wall Street section indicated here in green, the right-of-way, the public right-of-way be vacated. the public right-of-way of the alley be vacated, but we retain an easement, 15 feet wide, total easement for servicing these power line. That is the staff's recommendation.
Any impact on the property owners?
No, sir. The property owners actually submitted a request. So the owner of 1008 submitted this request, and then in the course of reviewing it, I realized that this 1010 had the same situation. So I reached out to the owner of 1010 East 8th Avenue, and he also requested that we go ahead and abandon the right of way. Owners of property in this area, they were all notified. None of them provided any feedback against this abandonment.
Ms. Song, did you receive any public feedback on this?
No, sir.
I actually talked to the applicant about this particular situation, and he invited me to take a look. That alley that he is requesting be closed actually goes right through the middle of his yard and into the yard of the next owner, almost into the garage. So, I mean, I think this is something that's happened over a century. And then the Wall Street piece that is requesting being closed is actually the applicant's driveway. So I think this is just an oversight through a long, long time, and leaving the other side of Wall Street open. I think the only other comment is that might even be on the applicant's tax roll right now, which is probably something that needs to be corrected.
Okay. All right. Any further? I'm sorry. Gary Harrell called me because his computer died, so he had to exit the meeting. That's what happened to him, so you all know.
Means these meetings are too long.
That's exactly what he said. We talk too much.
Actually had to move locations. I was below 5% here, so
yeah.
Sorry for the different background.
We don't set speed records anymore. I don't know what it is, but all right. Anybody?
I actually have also visited this property, not with the homeowner, but just living in the neighborhood. And I think given the condition, the way it's not closing a public street. It looks like a driveway. It's straight up a hill. It's overgrown. I don't think there's any impact to the neighborhood or other neighbors or for emergency services in the neighborhood. So having laid eyes on this, I can support it.
Okay.
I move that we.
Do we have any public input at all?
No.
No, sir.
Great. Thanks. So therefore, that's the end of public input. I just want to make sure we had that option. And please, if there's any motions, please make it.
I move that we abandon the alleyway between the two properties on East A Street. Do I need to give the specific address? The properties at 1008 East A Street, East 8th Avenue, and 1010 East 8th Avenue. And also the section of Wall Street adjoining 1008 East 8th Avenue.
Great. Can you just say in these, Preston or anybody, that, hey, we just recommend abandoning the right of way as proposed by staff in their report? Would that be fair with maintaining the, is that a clean way of doing this so we don't get caught in all this? Make sure we have it correct.
Yes, sir. I think it's been correctly stated, or
Okay.
it's been stated in a way that we're okay.
I second Commissioner Wild's motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's call that roll.
Vice Chairman Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Dagenhart,
Yes.
Commissioner Hickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Jamie.
did we lose him?
You probably lost your
I did.
battery.
Yep.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Wild,
Yes.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes.
and Chairman Zayas.
Yes.
Motion approved as stated.
Awesome. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Yes.
Here, here.
All in favor? Aye. We're
Aye.
adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a great
Stay
night.
well.
Good
Be
night.
well.
Everybody.
See ya.